Hello, fortune seekers. How do you come up with all those ideas? Buddy, I can't stop coming up with ideas. You got an ideas budget? I'll blow through it. The question should be, how do you get these things made? And buddy, I'm a bit on the lazy side, so it hasn't happened that many times. One of the times it did happen, though, was making my short film, Negotiations. To get the film made, I had to negotiate the process of writing, pre-producing, shooting, and editing the film. So, on episode 2 of Film Maker Foibles, the mini negotiations of negotiations. On today's episode of the Mega Moth Studios Super Secret Podcast. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, writer, director, and current pizza delivery expert, Joel Watts. Joined as always by...
someone who orders more Domino's than they would like, Danny Ayub.
Yes. And if you want to learn more about our show and find out what we've been doing in the previous week, why don't you go ahead and go to your podcatcher or your YouTube playlist and take a step back. This is a From the Vault episode, so we're not even sure what happened last week, nor what's going to happen next week.
Yeah, do you think you're still delivering pizzas for Domino's when this airs?
You know what? I hope not. But
I hope not too.
But I also hope, I'm very hopeful that it's not because we're missing this episode due to a reason I also can't deliver pizza.
Oh, like if you were like crippled in some way?
Well, yeah, or my car was out of commission.
Or like if you like ended up getting attacked by like a wild animal?
Well, yeah. I'm trying to think of what the wild animals in my delivery zone would be. And, I've seen some pretty big birds in the sky, and I'm worried that word is getting out that I am the predator who's coming for them.
Yeah.
So when I hear those screeches, I get really, I start hitting the deck these days.
The predator becomes the prey.
Squawk! That's going to be the last thing I hear before I die. I'm sure really to date this episode, but I think it's an evergreen topic. You heard about that woman who was attacked by an eagle and a snake at the same time?
No, what happened?
She was out mowing her lawn, and I think it was a eagle carrying a snake started to attack her. So the snake is dangling from the eagle, and so it was lashing out at her. She got some pretty serious battle damage. They released a picture of her arm, and it was torn up pretty good.
Why did the eagle attack her?
We do not know. She, as far as we understand, she wasn't antagonizing anything. It came out of nowhere. But I will say, if it's team animals versus team humans, I at least understand where the animals are coming from.
Did she at least ask to talk to the Eagles manager?
I'll do some more research into that.
Please.
I
feel like I have to Google this now.
Yeah, feel free. You do a quick Google. Maybe we'll throw a picture of her battle damage into the show notes or something.
I'm sure she'll feel great about that.
Yeah, if you see a picture, take a screen cap.
Okay.
Cool. So this is the part of the show, Danny, where I usually have a question of the week for you. Now, this week is I think a special question because Negotiations, my short film that we're going to be talking about this week, actually managed to catch a star before they ascended. One, Erica Nix. Now, she's an Austin LGBTQ icon who has gone on to become a filmmaker in her own right in the past few years.
And an Austin mayoral candidate, no?
Yes, yeah, she was. She did run for mayor. She's all over the place. She's like a social media phenom. So I think that if you are uninitiated to her viewer, you can just Google Erica Nix and find her great works out there. She's a fitness guru, dancer, I would say comedian, but not necessarily the stand-up variety, but she definitely makes fun and funny and uplifting
she's awesome.
Videos.
If people like this episode, I definitely think we should try to see if she'd come on and talk to us about,
like a post
negotiations, but just everything. I'd be curious to catch up with her.
Yeah, it could be for a good podcast, but I would say, we got to work with her before she made that ascent. She was, a name about town, but she hadn't quite ascended to the heights that she has now. So do you have any really great stories or anecdotes about working with Erica Nix, this future star?
You know, for me, Erica was just phenomenal to work with across the board. She was super, super down to earth. I never felt like we were putting her out or, um, you know, sometimes you work with people and you just feel like asking them to do anything is like a hardship. And then there's other
Hmm.
people that you put through the ringer and, you know, they act like you haven't asked them to do anything at all. So my memories of Erica were just, I mean, one of the nicest people, one of the funniest people, just the best personality, extremely humble, and someone that I would work again with any day of the week. I mean, I have nothing but high praise for Erica Nix, but I don't have any super specific stories that come to mind. But that might be more of a symptom of the fact that my brain is kind of wearing
Well,
down here. My
yeah,
memory is not what it used to be.
you have two children and a recent a little bonk on the head recently, so I'm not blaming you for
And
that
you
one.
have like a fairly unhealthy obsession with Erica, correct?
Fairly unhealthy. I would say it's relatively healthy. Like she was. I mean, I guess
You have
we're
a
always
healthy
going to be.
obsession with Erica, is what you're saying.
I don't know. I've never been to one of her classes. I didn't go and see her. I feel bad about this, but it's like just things get lost in the shuffle. I didn't like go out of my way to see her movie yet. So I would actually say like if anything, I'm neglecting like this person that I'm cosmically intertwined with through our working together so early in our careers. But I would say that I do have. I mean, we're going to get into the movie proper here in a moment, but
Hmm.
there's a main central piece scene to negotiations, which involves a woman. So a woman has picked up a man from a bar, like she's desperate and wants to have, she wants to have sex with him,
As you do.
and yeah, as you do. I mean, I know I do. And she's trying to get him to have sex, but he can, in the scene, he can only get off if he pays her, if she's a prostitute. So he wants her to role play the role of a prostitute.
Very
Um,
normal.
and they get into this heated argument over the money and everything. And this is like the climate, like this is probably the most energy in her performance that she has to give. And I just remember that night we were shooting in an apartment, like you do when you're indie filmmakers. One of your friends has an apartment that they're willing to not be at for 24 hours. You got yourself an apartment to shoot in. And I
Yeah.
just remember she gave this such a heated, like a loud performance during this scene that I feel like the person downstairs did the classic, like took a broom and was like knocking on the floor, knocking back at us to tell us to be quiet because we were getting pretty late into the night. But I
They were
just
probably like,
remember,
enough with the hookers.
yeah, exactly. It was a lot of energy, and that was the first day of shoot, first scene we shot, and it was fairly,
Wow.
fairly high stress. So I just remember that energy that unlocked because this is like my first day as like being the director, like being really like the guy on set who is the director, and just thinking, just being like so happy that we were getting that level of performance. Anyways, okay,
I just
so
have PTSD from that story because like the entire time that I'm on set, I just feel extremely stressed out. Like I like it. Don't get me wrong. I used to love being on set, but
mhm,
like there's always this feeling that failure is imminent because you're not going to get everything done in time or like some
mhm,
sort of like crazy thing is going to derail the shoot. Like some angry neighbor. You've put all this like weeks of planning, months of planning in. You've got everyone there. Everything is going. You know, it was a miracle that everything showed up on time and everyone's there. And then now there's like some person downstairs who's like intent on keeping you too quiet to film or something like that. I don't know. Like it just already my
it's
anxiety is peaking.
well, let's let your anxiety come down a little bit because I actually have to call a timeout really quick because I just got visited by the bathroom fairy. So let me go and just take care of that as fast as possible. I'll be right back.
Okay. So when Joel says that he has a visit from the bathroom fairy, what he's actually saying is that he has to go downstairs and count all the mailboxes in the neighborhood. He does this several times a day. It's just a thing he's done from the time that he was really young. And I don't know why he's embarrassed about it. I think it's a very normal thing for, well, I don't know how normal it is, but it's certainly something that he does. And I think, we should respect that he really likes to count mailboxes. So, yeah, anytime he tells you, "Hey, I gotta go," the bathroom fairy showed up and told me I need to go to the bathroom, just know he's off somewhere looking for mailboxes to count.
So, Danny, I normally take the reins on being the host of the show, but today, since I guess, I'm sort of the subject matter, I thought I would hand over the host baton to you. Do you take this with all its seriousness and everything that comes with it?
I mean, I feel like it's very irresponsible, but I will accept your power and will try to wield it in the worst way possible.
Okay, well, you only get it till the end of the episode, so have fun.
All right, I will. All right.
Okay.
Am I allowed to change the topic of the episode?
No.
I am the host.
You
Okay.
are, but the topic has already been set in stone.
Okay. So here's what I'm thinking, and these are my thoughts. These are definitely not your thoughts with me speaking them. So I thought we could divide this conversation into three parts, because anyone who's been around filmmaking knows that you have three major phases to making a production. Right? You have your pre-production where you get everything prepared. You have your production where you make the sausage, and then you have the post-production where you make the sausage real pretty. So, so let's jump right into it. Let's start with the pre-production, most of which is sort of like conceptualization and writing and just how things come to be and how we get to the point where we're ready to start rolling our cameras. So the serious business of making comedies, how about we start there? So from the very beginning, Joel, do you remember first pitching the idea for negotiations?
Yeah, actually, I do, because it was actually with you. We were on, at the time, you had a wonderful little dog named Elvira,
Yes.
and we would take her out for walks. Because this is, man, we're talking at least 10 years ago still, probably longer, when this first came to our minds, or my mind. And I had just had this thought of the concept of a sketch, because at the time we were trying to do smaller, shorter projects to get, experience. And I had the idea of a sketch where a woman, I explained it earlier, a woman brings a man home to have sex with him, only to find out that he has a prostitution kink. And so he demands that he pay her. And that was the concept. It would start with him walking in, or with him walking into the house, and then it would end with it would end whenever the scene ended. And I remember pitching that to you on our walk, and I think that's when you started saying, well, it'd be fun if we had some interactions at the bar, or we see him pick her up. And so it sort of was the first thing that expanded it from being just one scene into being like at least two scenes. So, but that night walking with you and Elvira, that was definitely the first time I remember vocalizing the idea for the movie.
Do you know, like, when you get an idea for a project, whether it's going to be the kind of thing that you're going to see through to the end and it's actually going to become something versus, we all have a lot of thoughts that just don't go anywhere. Is there any difference in your mind when you have a thought that ends up going somewhere versus one that ends up not going somewhere? How early in the process does it feel different for you?
I think this one, I don't, sorry. So that is a great question, because it is something I haven't totally considered. So I might have to talk through it a little, but I would say the thing that separated this from a lot of the other projects that we've done was attainability right now. And it seared itself into my mind. I remember that conversation I had with you on that walk was still months away from us getting together and deciding what are we going to work on next. What are what is everybody's, primary project, and me deciding to make this my primary project. But I think with this one, I just thought, how hard, how hard can it be to get a good actress? And I was working with at a cinema here in Austin, Texas, that isn't the Alamo Draft House. Do you think we can talk about it? It's my former employer.
I wouldn't talk about the Violent Crown. I wouldn't use their name.
You okay? Okay, so
I was joking about that.
Yeah.
It's the Violet Crown. So
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, the Violet Crown Cinema. So it was, at the very least at the time, it was a wonderful, hip downtown.
but it's gone downhill.
I can't speak for it going downhill. I just haven't been in a long time, and it's like I haven't really been much post-pandemic, so I don't know how they are on a daily basis.
I
Like that
gotcha.
changed a lot of things.
You left, it went downhill. We got it.
Y- Oh, you know,
You held it together, man. Like I believe you. I believe in it.
yeah.
Anyway, but you were going
But
on.
yes. I was working with at least two, if not three, great young comedic young actresses at the place at the time, and I was like, in my head, I was like, I'm just going to cast one of them as the woman, and we had somebody else in our back pocket that was our go-to, kind of like our go-to stooge. I don't know what would be the best. I guess a character actor. Who I was like, if nothing else, he would work. If I don't audition anybody else to work for the role, we can use him. And yeah, I mean,
I
so
feel like you just walked back that the actresses were great, and you said that this guy who is your backup was just kind of like, if nothing else comes up, he'll do.
I mean, I'll say he did a great job, but
He did a great job.
yeah, but it just wasn't. He wasn't necessarily my first pick, but I had a feeling he would be. Or I just knew he would say yes. He was game. And I think that's a big thing, and something we always talk about. Like, you talk about minimum viable product. I think, like, compared to a lot of the other projects that we had or we would work on at the time, this was two characters in a room. And often when we were talking about movies, it would be like, the feature films or films that would require big sets or, very specific sets or very specific props, lots of actors, things like that. It was just like, no, when you're making a movie, you really have to start at the basics. And the basics is two people talking, whether that be in a room or on a walk. If you can't nail two people having a conversation that are at odds with each other, then you're not going to be able to go to like five people at odds with each other and they're going to beat each other up over it. Because I don't want to see people beating each other up if they haven't already like kind of talked through their problems.
So how do you go from you have an idea to starting to write? What's your process of taking, that first idea and then converting it into something that we can have a conversation about at a detailed level?
It's only happened a handful of times at this point. And I will say, I just try to sit down and I try to get something that we can all gather around and agree upon. Like there's one thing to pitch a broad idea and maybe a couple of details along the way. And I can do that with you. Like, you will listen to my ideas and give me solid feedback. But I think most people, they don't trust me as somebody who's worked in movies and creative fields. It's like, if you tell me you have an idea for a movie, that's great. Give me a sentence. If you sum it up in a sentence and let's move on. But when people start talking to me about their ideas and they keep talking and talking about them, that can be a little annoying. So what I like to see, what I like to give people is, at the very least a script. I think if I was doing a feature, I would probably present them with what's called a treatment, which is like, it's almost like a script, people do it in different ways, but I would say it's like a script without the dialogue. So it reads much faster. You just kind of sum up what happens in the scenes. And so if they're interested in the story at that point, then you could probably move forward with them. If it's a short film, you can hand them a completed script because it shouldn't be more than 10 to 15 pages for a short film. But I would just say, get something that everybody can look at and objectively agree is one thing. Because like, I think when you start talking ideas, if I were to tell just a random stranger the concept I had for negotiations, their brain will fill in the details in much different ways, and they might take something else out of it. So if you're working with people, you kind of need to have that objective thing that everybody can agree on is like the building block, the foundation.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, there's two sides of this. One is the side of being the person with the ideas, and being able to make your ideas digestible to other people is super key if you expect to collaborate with other people and actually get something done. And unless you're that very rare person who can do it all, you're going to need other people. And even if you're the rare person who could do it all, is it the best way to do it? Probably not, right? So, I mean, one of the things, maybe once, right? Like when you're very, very young, just starting out. But I mean, once you get to a certain point, hopefully you're working with other people and you're learning how to work with other people. I think a lot of our 20s was spent trying to figure out how to work with other people to get things done. And the other part of it is just the feedback part of it. One of the things I think you encounter a lot when you're sharing your ideas with other people is they hear your idea and then it sparks their own idea. And now they're talking to you about whatever idea they have that was inspired by what you're saying, rather than actually trying to help you, further your idea. They're not trying to seek to understand what you're trying to do. They're not trying to seek, they're just riffing off of your idea with their own thoughts. And that's something I think we can talk about on another episode. I know at one point we wanted to do a full episode on giving and taking notes. And so I won't go into that in detail here. But after you kind of wrote that first script, I mean, we said, perfect, great, let's shoot it, right?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, honestly, like, you preemptively, you divided up or at the beginning of this, you divided it up between pre-production, production, post-production. But I do think like the writing process is its own thing. Like you have to get through the writing process in order to get to pre-production. And I mean, I could, you know what? In the show notes, there's going to be a link to negotiations. If you're in this deep with the conversation, you should probably watch it so we can talk through the plot and what changed. So feel free, please go and watch the movie. If not, hopefully we can do a good enough job explaining it, and I will do my best right now to lay it out so we can talk about what changed. So in negotiations, as we said, there was the core film that was the sketch of a woman trying to convince a man to sleep with her and him refusing to until he pays her for her services. And then,
to be clear, she's not a prostitute.
She is not a prostitute. She's just a woman who's, looking to have a good time, and she thought she found somebody to have fun with. And he had a prostitution kink. And then we added to so I need to go this way, for, mirror purposes. So we added to the beginning that, before that we would have a scene at the bar, and I figured, okay, comedy rule of threes. She propositions 3 guys and gets turned down 3 different times I think she propositions 2 guys and she gets turned down, and the third guy is the guy, the John, for lack of a better word. And that was the entire movie. And then I think I presented that to you, and that's when we started. Like I said, we had something solid. We could really talk about it. I could really take your feedback to heart, and I think that's when we decided, kind of like 2 things. A, she needed to be at the bar and alone for a reason. So we added another scene to the beginning of that, which was like her calling up a friend who basically stood her up. And so she says, if you're not coming out, I'm going to go and have some fun. And then at the end, and this is where probably what was the climax is going to become the middle of the film as I explain this. So right after the proposition, we were just going to say, okay, and it ends with her calling that friend back and telling her what a horrible night she had. And then so I presented that version of the script to you. And maybe at that point we were working with one of our friends, Toby Canto, we all decided to get together and try to support each other making a movie. And mine was going to be the first one up, since I had like the clearest, the probably the easiest produced script and the clearest vision at the time. So once you two got it and started talking about it more at that point, then that's when a really big debate started with the ending of the film, because I had always imagined it as a short film, but now that it had extended so much at the beginning, we needed to have more at the end. And this was a very big push and pull, feeling each other out, talking to other people on the outside, developing what was just making a quick phone call and a final gag turned into her going to see her friend, having a one-on-one conversation with her friend, and then her going back to the bar and then having a confrontation with the guy that she got rejected by earlier. So, like I said, like now it went from being what was just a sketch into being a full-fledged short film with a character, like a true character arc. And that was like, I would go as far as to say at least a month or 2 of me presenting ideas to you and Toby. And I think another friend of ours who was in the filmmaking game, and it was actually a writer first and foremost as like his main focus, Mark Stowe.
Mark Smoot.
Yeah, sorry. Mark Stowe was a manager. They have very similar names. Mark Smoot.
Who we'll talk about more. Maybe we should even have him on for
If
that
he
one
wants,
episode. I'll ask him.
yeah, it wouldn't be. I mean, if people are interested, we would love to like have a little, a little podcast reunion of this. Especially if you watch the movie and you like it, want to know more about it. Consider it like a little director's commentary / behind the scenes featurette that we could put together. Anyways, Mark Smoot, wonderful. I think that was like they talk about when you break a story, and that's a good thing in writers' rooms. And when you're writing a story, when you break the story, that means you understand it so completely, you know exactly what needs to happen. And you and I had a meeting with Mark. He had read the script and he had given me his very valuable time, I would say, to actually talk to me about like what he was feeling was missing or lacking. And it wasn't at the table. And this is important. It wasn't like at the table. I had ideas. I understood what he was saying about Louise needing to kind of like have, a true ending. And Louise is the main character of the film, by the way, played by Erica Nix, the great Erica Nix. And Louise needed to have like kind of a final moment, a final ending. I understood what he was saying. I had an idea or two at the table that I like brought up. None of them resonated, but it was probably later that day or as I was walking away that the ending as I wanted it to be that would fulfill the story came to my mind. And I think I sat down, finally, I went home, probably sat down, wrote the script either that night or the next day. And I remember, I don't remember the specifics, but I'm pretty sure I sent it to you and you were like, good, let's go.
Nice. And then I know I kind of cut you off earlier in the process, but how did we go from you looking at actresses that were effectively your coworkers to Erica Nix?
I think it was, I don't remember this process because I will say, like, Danny, this is like where you really shine is you are really great at finding people. So I think at the time we were hitting up like web show mixers because we can get into that another time. But before this, we were in another web series or helped create another web series. And so that kind of got us our foot in the door to like go to like little mixers. And some of these were even hosted by like Rooster Teeth, which at the time was still like in its, very original form versus what it is today post sell or acquisition, I should say. And I'm sure we ran into Erica at one of these. And I was still like just thinking about casting the people that I knew. But I think you probably rightfully or wisely saw that the character had changed. Like before, when it was just a sketch, the character could have been pretty much any woman of any age. I mean, obviously above 21, preferably 25. But I think that the story as it evolved, the character became much more of a post-30s person. And the people I was originally looking at would not have fit into that. Be that they were great actresses.
The story had taken on more of the story had become more about, less of, hey, go out, have a wild night, what happens, and more when you've moved past the time of your life where your other friends in your life want to do that thing, but you haven't quite got there yet, and you're feeling kind of left behind, and kind of maybe the rifts that, can happen as people start to transition to the next phase of life.
100%. That was that. It's sort of like I didn't realize what the theme or the true meaning of my story had turned into in front of me, and I think wisely you did. And so we got Erica, who was in her early mid-30s at the time.
I don't remember how old she was, but I mean she was perfect for the role. I mean she was at the right.
She was at the right age, but also at the right stage, at that stage in life. But also, like everybody else was like. Or not everybody else. The other actress I had mostly in mind, her name is Lindsley Howards, and I think she's gone on to actually have like she's somebody who I think has been on Broadway or at least off Broadway in New York since I worked with her, and she was wonderful. But she's a very, I would say, polished persona, and she was just way too young at the time. And I think Erica is she's just much more of her personality.
She's a character actress. I feel like she just exudes character. She's funny. Yes. She's a serious person, but like she has the ability to, like some people can just turn on being funny
Yeah.
just by existing. Like they kind of know, or they have like a way of being. And she just has that energy. I mean, she can be entertaining at the drop of a hat, doing
Yeah.
anything. If
All
you
it
told
took-
her, button your shirt in a funny way, she'd figure it out.
Exactly. Yeah. She has that. She definitely has that quality. I wanted to. I mean, I was contemplating writing as a feature film starring her with her as a stand-up, but that never really caught on in my mind the way it needed to complete the story. But I do know, and I will say, all it took was one read through of the script. We invited her over to my place. I had her read through the script with me, and I think a few other folks, and it was just like, that's it. You got it. We don't need anybody else. This is our Louise.
Perfect. And then that wasn't from that point though. It wasn't just directly we were filming and everything was smooth. There was still one big final hurdle for completion prior to getting out of the pre-production phase. What was it, and how did we solve that? Do you remember?
Well, I mean, we had to secure locations, so that might have been one. Maybe not the one that you're thinking of.
I'm not thinking of anything. I'm reading what you wrote on the page for me to read. And
Oh.
you seem very certain that there was like one thing. It says, what was the final hurdle for completion and how did you solve it?
That was the rewrites, I think. Like,
Okay, we'll just cut this question. I'll pivot to part 2.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So we found Erica. You worked with Mark Smoot. You worked with Toby and I. We got the script to a place where everyone felt confident in it and said it was time to go forward with production. And this was your first time really working with actors on a film, right?
I would say yes. Fortunately, I had done some acting before this at this point, so I knew sort of what it was like to be in front of the camera. But I would say this is the first time I went into a movie and being like, I'm actually going to direct to get performances instead of just being like, that was good, let's move on.
What was your approach? Like, how did you approach directing actors for the first time?
So the approach there going into pre-production was rehearse. Now, we had a lot of bit parts that we couldn't bring somebody in to rehearse like a 2-line exchange, but we did have 2 chunky scenes, that being
Super
Erica
chunky.
Nix. Yeah, Erica Nix with Valentine Dinham, and then Erica Nix with Jessica Gardner. And Erica and Jessica knew each other already, so that was a much smoother.
They're great friends.
Yeah.
To this day, they're besties. I see them all over the socials.
Yeah. So if you know Erica and you follow Erica, you probably know Jessica as well. And so that was fairly smooth. In fact, I feel like we wrote in a lot of jokes into their scene that we ended up cutting because they were just so good at the honesty. Like there was still the comedy didn't necessarily need to be there because their conversation that they had with each other, through the scene, the way they acted it out was just so true to a friendship that it was like the jokes were just becoming speed bumps to like the emotion.
Kind of like this podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Jokes are speed bumps to the emotion.
And then Erica to Val. Yeah.
Erica and Val.
Erica and Val didn't know each other nearly as well, so we had much more intensive rehearsals, I would say. Plus, their scene was way more physical. So we would just run through the scene at my place, like over the course of 2 hours. We would try to get from beginning to end and to break it up into little segments. Just the classic rehearsal, like what they say about rehearsal. And I felt like that was so important because then once we got to set, I didn't have to worry about directing them as actors for the most part. Yeah, like a little bit here and there, pushing them here and there. But it was then at that point, it was like, okay, how do we shape the performance you already have to match where the camera is now that the camera's involved? And so I wasn't having to start at square one. It was, we already got like a lot of chemistry here. And then it just becomes how do we problem solve everything else that comes with being on set?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was very wise as a first-time director. I mean, your emotionally heavy scene was, the scene between the 2 friends and, casting 2 actual friends that, had enough performance, background to bring it and to do that and have that organic chemistry really was a good way to make sure that you got what you needed there without having to sort of figure out a way to make these people play off each other naturally. As a first-time director, you want to look for opportunities like that to stack the odds. And of course, this doesn't pertain only to directors. I mean, anytime you're doing something, it's like, how can we make this as easy for us as possible? How can we make this as likely for us to succeed as possible? And I think you made a great decision in casting Friends for that dynamic.
Well, I think that just, I mean, at the end of the day, I probably was the person who had to make the decision, but I'm pretty sure that idea was presented to me by either yourself, Toby, or Erica. I'm just really grateful that I listened to the people around me when a good idea came about.
Right. And I mean, that is key, right? I think that you'll see a pattern with highly successful people that they have a group of people that they work with that they actually listen to. And it's not just lip service. It's, hey, I really need to crunch these things with other people to figure out, what's the right way to go forward. If you have people that you're working with and you're not genuinely taking their feedback, you're not listening to them, you're leaving a lot of value on the table, and two, you're the odds that you're going to be successful are greatly limited because you haven't found a team, and people working together can accomplish more than any individual by themselves, generally speaking.
I mean, it's true for a lot of fields, but I would say I often hear that the ones we think of as the great directors of our time have consistent teams that they work with. They work with the same people over and over again behind the scenes. It's almost like a band at that point.
Speaking of the team and sort of the the technical side, who was on the set and what was it like working on set?
Yeah. So aside from the actors who have hit like the main powerhouses on the actors, of course, you were on set every day, and you were wearing kind of a dual hat of producer, but also a little bit of like assistant camera, helping with the lighting, because William Wymore, the editor of our show, was the cinematographer, and this was in the DSLR revolution days. So this was early, I would say early for us. I'm sure some people would say it was like mid the DSLR revolution, but he was running with like a Nikon camera with some pretty solid glass on it, and it was pretty good hardware. Probably, I'm not going to say the best camera we had worked with up until that point, but it was leagues ahead of what I had used for like my previous short films, which was probably some, shot on DV camcorder. So this actually made
the Nikon D800, and that served well for a number of projects. At the time, I felt like it would produce, very good footage for where we were at and what we were doing.
And Will gave 100%. And Will gave me a lot of confidence because we went to pick up. I remember we went to either pick up our equipment that we were renting, or we went to go get our equipment or we were like placing the order, one way or the other. But Will smartly went over to the gels. That's like what changes the light's temperature. So, if you wanted to you wouldn't like get a red light bulb to make a red light in a movie, for movie lighting. You would get a regular light like we're using to light ourselves right here. And then you would put a red, like transparent, like plastic transparent piece, red film. Thank you. Over it. And I just remember going with him, and he started looking at those, and we were just had a quick conversation, like, what are the colors of this movie? And I was like, well, this is, and probably before bylighting became, a real like key term, I was just like, this movie is like a neon movie, so it has to be like a red and a blue. That's always what I think with neon. And then I think we chose red and blue to be the primary colors we would be lighting things with green as like a third color for, like, I forgot exactly what it was meant for, but I said at the time it's kind of going to represent her, I don't know, like the bad decision she's making. Because it was a series of bad decisions that we decided the movie had kind of become to, now that, the character had changed to being at the point of the point of time in life you were talking about. So Will gave me a lot of confidence there, and I didn't even really have to direct him in lighting. You and Will definitely took care of that, and pretty much every scene came out as good as we could for the limited budget and the limited crew we had. It was practically a crew of two between you and him. Then we had Patrick, who was the original playtester. If you've been listening to the podcast for a long time, Patrick, the original playtester of X Seekers of Fortune, he was or not the, he was the assistant director,
Assistant
right?
director. Yep.
Yeah. And that means he's basically the guy who has to make sure everything's getting done and everything's getting done on schedule. And it's funny, they say they're called the assistant director, but in reality, on a well-run set, the assistant director is essentially the boss of the director, because the assistant director says, you need to go now. We need to get this stuff together now. If you're going to do this on time, you need to be shooting in the next 2 minutes. So make your final decisions and get going. And I just remember, for the most part, he did that role well. And, he would, he would say, hey, you got, we only got like time left to get 3 more shots. What 3 shots do you need? And fortunately, I was prepared enough to tell him I need these 3 shots. And
you were
it
quite
worked
prepared.
out.
You had a lot of shot. You had a thorough storyboarding of the film, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I had a thorough shot list for sure, with some key scenes storyboarded. And I could not have left home without it. And having rehearsed all the scenes as much as I had, I knew which, when it came time to be like, I still have 5 shots listed out, which 3 do I like, and I can only get 2 or 3 of them. I, could tell Patrick exactly, like, let's cut these 2 shots and these 2 are necessary. Who else was there? And you might have to help me. I remember there was a lot of people who kind of came in and went out. I mean, Toby was there, and Toby was just an extra set of hands for, a great support, extra set of hands. No specific role, if I do remember correctly, but he was just there to help anybody else who needed a hand at the moment.
Yeah.
Would you say about right?
Yeah, I don't really remember specifically him having a role. I just remember him showing up and doing Toby things.
Yeah. I mean, I would producer. I would put him in the producer role. And I mean, and you need somebody like that too, because there's going to, especially in the bar scenes that we had, we're talking like, we didn't have a ton of extras, but we're having like 5 people who are there just graciously to be background players, essentially.
Who played the first person? There was the husband with the wife, right? Or like the other girlfriend that gives her a nasty look. That's like the first encounter, right? She hits on this guy. He looks at her. And then it turns out that she has someone with her. Do you remember who played?
It's so funny because I think didn't make it to the final cut of the film, but I do remember that scene. And I remember the woman, the wife, was being played by okay, so it's Andy DeVoe was the actor who plays the final guy that Erica is trying to pick up, or Louise is trying to pick up at the end of the night, the stud who struck out. He's was trying to get with the other women. And they're out of commission because of drinks and getting sick because of drinks. And so he's trying to make moves on Erica right at the end. That guy was dating the woman who plays the wife. And he kind of asked us to bring her in, since he was on the shoot. He was like, well, she can do it. She's good. And I mean, he was right. She pulled off what we were looking for. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out for like the pacing of the scene. It was just one too many jokes. I don't remember who played her, the husband. And I can't go back and look at that footage. I think anything that wasn't in the final film is lost at this point.
Wow.
The hard drive, long dead. So I honestly don't recall. If I were to guess, maybe it was this guy named Tom, who was working with me at Violet Crown, who had just a real schluppy look. But he just looked like one of those guys who.
I feel like you've insulted most of the actors in this film, with the exception of Erica Nix, because you have an unhealthy obsession with her.
It might be true. Well, I haven't said a bad word about Jessica.
You just didn't remember her name.
Yeah.
Her last name. You knew her first name, Jessica
Yes.
Gardner.
Yes, I do.
It's hard to remember everyone else's last name when you have a unhealthy obsession with one individual. So
yeah,
it crowds out all the other members. Okay, so did we have to do any reshoots following production?
So yeah, we did, and that one was it was actually a pretty simple, and probably I'm actually kind of glad we needed to do the reshoot. We had the ending of Erica going to, or Louise Louise walks away from the guy who's trying to pick her up at the end of the night, and she just decides, I'd rather have my self-respect intact, and walks away. And the idea was she walks away triumphantly, only to have her heel break out from underneath her. And here's where preparation is super important. We had prepared, rehearsing. We had written everything, gotten the lights and all the gels and the camera. None of us had prepared to get a heel to break on command. We just decided, oh, we need to do that. Like the night of that main shoot. In fact, we probably spent so much time trying to get that heel to break that I lost time, getting a few more takes with Erica and Andy performing the scene that I wish I had gotten. We still got a great, take at it, but when you're in the editing bay, you always hope that you have like 2 more takes than you do. Yeah. And so we tried shooting that scene, and it just did not look right. The heel did not break properly. And we also, since it was such a rush job, we hadn't thought through. I didn't get the angle on her falling that I wanted to. It looked weird. It just looked weird. So we decided we would go back to the location with a heel preemptively broken. And we found a point where we can make it seem like, oh, she can be coming around a corner, so that way it's clean. We don't have to have the other characters there. And we not only did we get it, but we got it in such a way that it put a punctuation mark on the film, because it was always meant to be like, you always want your film to end strong, with a strong final image, a strong final moment. And the way we had it was anything but strong. So going back and being able to reshoot that months later was crucial to the movie coming out. And it's probably my favorite, like Erica walking away barefoot, on her feet. And it's not that I'm a foot person. Don't accuse me of being a foot person. But
I wasn't going there, but I mean, I think that we've uncovered another unhealthy obsession. So
I'm obsessed with not being accused of being a foot person.
Exposed.
I'm a fan of Quentin Tarantino, who happened to be a foot person. So I got influenced that a cool shot was seeing somebody's feet doing things. I'd still hold by that. I think, like if you're going to segment off somebody, the feet are just as good as the hands to sort of tell a story without seeing the whole body. But just Erica throwing the shoes behind her and then, walking forward barefoot. One of my favorite shots that I've ever gotten.
Because you're a foot person. How long did it take to cut the rough cut of the film, the assembly?
Okay, so yeah, we got production over, and that was, I wouldn't say it was a nightmare, the production side of things, though. To circle back, I will say, even on a short film, don't expect to get a lot of sleep. We had one day where we had to wake up ungodly early to get started at our bar set, and then we had a break of like 5 or 6 hours, and then we had to start shooting late at, once the sun had gone down, and go in late into the evening to shoot the porch scene between Erica and Jessica. And that was crammed in the middle of days with at least, an 8-hour shoot, if not longer.
And we shot at a place that's not there anymore, right? The Lucky Horseshoe? The Horseshoe Lounge? The Horseshoe Lounge?
The Horseshoe Lounge, I mean, it's there in the fact that it's the same building and with a very similar interior, but like a lot of things in Austin, it changed its name and got a facelift on the inside. So what is it called now? I forgot. I might have to look that up. But yeah, we shot it.
Yeah, I don't feel like you could do that as easily in today's Austin. I feel like, the era that we were shooting, at these small businesses in Austin, like trying to do an exterior shoot at the outside of a bar in Austin now seems like it would probably be relatively difficult without quite a bit of resource. I'm sure it's still possible, but
not to mention interior.
Yeah.
And I think if I remember correctly, we might have gotten away with it because of a miscommunication. I think the person who approved us shooting at the bar didn't have the right to do that. And once word got back out up to like the upper management, they were kind of sore that we got away with shooting at the bar for like practically no money.
Nice.
We had to pay one bartender to come in early, basically, and essentially that we paid for them to prep.
You like had to bribe a bunch of people, if I remember correctly, right? You were lining people's palms with 20s.
I would say that I let Toby take care of such method,
Yeah,
such
Toby's
business.
definitely the one doing the shady
Yeah,
stuff.
all
Yeah,
he would come up and say, "Hey, I need this. I need an extra 20 for the production. Don't worry about it."
mm-hmm.
Reach into my pocket, hand him something. All of a sudden magic would happen. That's the charm of Toby. He's got the gift.
Yep.
That's it. That's definitely his gift on set. But so I was going to say, I think the bar is now called Stay Gold. I could
Stay
be
gold.
wrong. Yeah, but it was definitely one of the last ones, and we were fortunate enough to shoot at a bar that had been shot for, what was it, Friday Night Lights? I want to say the Horseshoe Lounge was their main bar in that show.
Might have been. I never saw Friday Night Lights.
All I know is it was a Austin landmark. I think if you made a movie sometime between like 2005 and 2012 in Austin, there was, that was like a place to get. It was an attainable set that looked good, and a lot of people got it.
Yeah,
It had,
photographed very well.
yes, it did. So
But how long did it
so
take you to cut the film?
that's it took. Okay, now if we're talking about cutting the visuals of the film, it didn't take me that. I was excited coming out of the film. I was jazzed. I was so happy to see all the footage. I could just edit, edit, edit. I got myself a new MacBook Pro at the time. This is the 2012 model. It's still like, I think late 2012 or mid 2012 is still considered one of the last great MacBook Pros, like especially in the pre, you know, and like, you had like MacBook Pro, then you had the MacBook Pro Retina. And now we have like MacBook Pros, the M series or whatever. This was like the last great regular MacBook Pro. I would take that thing around with me. I would edit at coffee shops. I was just on cloud nine, and I got a picture cut. I would say like relatively fast. Like, I mean, I think I had something to show you guys like within weeks, at least scenes like that I thought were pretty much, more or less complete. Y'all disagreed with me, of course, but we had something to review within a few weeks, and then came the real job of editing, which is, deciding what jokes stay in, what go out, when's the reaction shot, how much time between these two lines. And, I was working with you and Toby primarily as a team on that. And that slowed things, down a little. And we had probably quite a few months of on and off again work. But in all honesty, the thing, well, I think we can get to it here in a moment, but I would say like I would say at the very least I was super jazzed, and I think it didn't take me more than a month to cut a rough. And this is like the first major project I had finally been able to edit, which I'm very proud of. If I was to go back to filmmaking and do something that got me a paycheck, it would probably be editing.
Yeah, and editing was something that I think everyone on the team was like fairly capable at. So we felt really deep in that area. But one area where we didn't feel deep at all was the sound. I remember that being a huge learning experience for us. What was your memory about getting the sound right for negotiations?
So this is where the never give up, never surrender kind of speech comes in, because here, let me. So sound on negotiations was practically a brick wall for the production. I don't recall in detail. I wish I kept a journal at the time, but it would have been a little depressing, because I would say from the time we finished the movie to the time that we actually were able to show the movie to our friends at something like a premiere, I want to say it was like at least 18 months. It was an embarrassing amount of time, because we were so jazzed on the the picture, like editing the picture, getting the dialogue more or less where it needed to go. We were jazzed on that. I think we were done with that, or practically at being done with that after 2.5 to 3 months or something like that. I remember even like the last time that we finally touched things on the in like you and Toby went away to recut the final scene between Erica and Andy, and you guys came to me with it, and it was like I was like looking at it, and I was still in the mindset of tinkering. And I think you were like, "No, Joel, trust me, this is done." And like I stopped thinking of it as tinkering and just watched the scene. I was like, "You're right. This is like I could mess with it further, but there's no point. This is pretty much as good as the scene's going to get. Thank you guys for doing this." And then I started trying to wrap my brain around sound, and it was completely new territory. And I think it took the wind out of my sails completely. We would still kind of come back and talk about negotiations and talk about how we needed to finish negotiations. I'd open up the project and look at it. I think I fell deeply into color grading it, because with Will's gels, I was able to, in the post production, take it from like a naturalistic, like kind of what you're looking at here with just a little bit of red and blue, but I was able to really skyrocket the red and blue in the post production. And so it's my first time getting to play with color correction. So I got to distract myself with that for a few weeks, so maybe a few months, doing it, redoing it, that sort of thing. I kept ignoring sound because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to use the tools. I didn't know what good sound sounded like. I didn't even know if I had the speakers to do good sound. We tried to get a couple of people in, and we're distracting. Like I said, it was 18 months, but there was like little like projects along the way, like the color. We distract ourselves. Val, the main actor in the project, he helped us collect bands that he knew. And actually, we went through the process of getting them to sign releases, and these are like punk bands. So, he just used his connections to get like 5 songs or something like that for us for free. Just his sweat, putting his sweat into it. I got to, I got to thank him for that. And I think, it was quite a bit of work on his end. So we did that. We just had all these little projects, creating good graphics. And I also had, not graphics, but title cards at the end, like actually using, a graphical program to kind of soup those up. And at the time I was going to school as well. So I had an excuse because I was working on other projects for school, but sound was always the thing that I was pushing off, thinking I would eventually figure it out. And I never did, but it was almost like one of those, when you really need something and you just finally surrender and say to the universe and say, I can't do this, please send me somebody who can. Toby met, and I do apologize, I do not remember this person's name. We met like twice in my entire time working on this project, and one of them was when he came over to knock out the sound. But Toby had met another filmmaker through Central Market, which if you work in Austin, Texas, and you're a creative person, maybe at least try to dip your toe into working at Central Market, because that is a place where artists just, there's lifers there who are artists. There's new folks who just got to town who are artists. It's a good place to network for being a grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically
this is specifically Central Market Westgate on South Lamar that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know about North Lamar.
I don't know anything.
I can't speak about North Lamar.
She's up there. I don't know nothing about her.
Why are we gendering the grocery stores now?
Well, because it's a fancy Central Market.
Okay.
Anyways, so Toby met another filmmaker at Central Market, and I'm not going to say he was the whole package. If anything, I really hope this person has gone on to do some more project making somewhere in some department, because they were a whole package type of filmmaker. They knew enough about lighting to be the cinematographer. They knew enough about, storytelling to be the writer, and they knew enough about sound to be the sound person. And I had a quick conversation with them and had a really great time, a really great read on this person. And I just said, hey, if you could come by, I'll pay you something, anything, whether it be some nice, I'll buy you some nice beer, or I'll just give you some cash. I just need this done. My project is, at this point, I would say the project had been lingering. We had done everything we could besides the sound, and we were neglecting the sound for months on end. And we were getting distracted, or I was getting distracted with other projects, whether they be for school or like, oh, my next film project, let me start writing that. So he comes in, and I would say within a matter of 2 hours, maybe less, maybe a little more, he just goes from beginning to end on the movie. Very little direction from me. He just gets all the sound correct. And by the time he was done with it, we had the movie. We had the movie locked.
So I don't know how much I interacted with this person at all, but according to the credits on YouTube, his name was James Drinkard.
That sounds about right. Yeah, James Drinkard, wherever you are, thank you so much for basically volunteering your time for negotiations. Without you, we wouldn't have gotten the movie finished at all. I wouldn't be able to show it. Well, I would only show at that point. I would only show it on like a home computer screen, and I would just be apologizing about the audio. But nowadays, I full-heartedly think if anything, the audio is probably one of the best aspects of the movie at this point, aside from the wonderful performances. But when it comes to a technical side of things, I think the audio is actually better than, and no knock on Will, but DSLR. We talked about the DSLR revolution. It was the best footage we could get at the time. Now it looks not as it looks a little rougher, I think, to our 4K eyes, because this was what, 1080p?
Yeah, I mean, you can't compete with 4K. I mean, it's always crazy to me. Like, they're like, oh, we have higher resolution. We're like, how do you get higher resolution than what we have now? And then they show it to you, and you're like, oh, we've been watching Dog Water all these years. Like, how do we even look at this stuff? I can't. It burns my eyes. I can't. It's
Yeah.
so blurry. And then
Going back, the only thing I would go back to standard definition for is video games. Like we can go into a whole episode on this if we wanted to, I'm sure, but video games of bygone eras of the CRT low definition era, their graphics were designed to take advantage of like the technology. So, when you just take the graphics and put it on a high definition TV, even if you downscale it, the way that the scan lines work versus like what we have now makes everything look very jaggedy. And they use the scan lines, the dots of the TV, to sort of soften everything up a bit. But,
so here we have basically the movie done, and then once it was finished, you just kind of put it in a drawer. We never did anything or talked about it ever again, right?
Well, not completely. I would say we sort of did in some ways, and we can talk about that maybe in the postscript of all of this. But really, we did at least do a big hurrah with the cast, all the crew, and friends and family. I was working at Violet Crown Cinema at the time.
Before it went downhill.
Before it turned into Violet Crown Poopy Pants. Or maybe I should say the Violent Clown Cinema. No, we should just cut that. That was a joke.
It felt like a weird Brian reference.
That was just a weird joke from the inside. There we had a few different alternative names amongst the staff. Anyways, I used my connections there to get us a screening, I think for super cheap. Like, I think they charged us $50 to screen the movie at Violet Crown Cinema on a business night. Like, we didn't wait till after this place closed or came in before it opened. They took a screening of a real film that they were playing at the time out of rotation in order to let us use the screen.
You probably have an invoice coming at the end of this episode. They're like, oh, by the way, we forgot to charge you $19.50.
Yeah. Well, I mean, within the shape the theater's in, they probably need to come calling to collect on old debts.
To be clear, this is Joel's personal debt. It has nothing to do with Megamoth Studios.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll take on the responsibilities of our previous venture. But no, it was okay. And this is the icing on the cake. This is the cake, actually. Let's just say that. This is the cake of doing a project like this. You get all your friends together who have, like, they've been cheering for you and your friends, like you and your crew. They've been wanting you to succeed. They want you to have something like this. And they get to go to a movie theater and watch a movie that you made. I've done this like 2 or 3 times with a few different projects. This was mine. I've also been there for friends' projects who have done the same thing. You get them. Everybody's in a merry mood. Like, let me tell you, if you're a bar or if you're a theater that has a bar, it is worth renting out your screen for cheap in this situation, because everybody coming there is there to party. You're going to make up any movie money you lost on the ticket sales for a mainstream film. You're going to make up for in beer and alcohol sales for all the folks who are coming in, because they want to have a good time. I got poured a couple of free drinks that evening by my coworkers because they were so happy with the amount of business they got on some random, like, it was like Monday or Tuesday, not your normal movie day. It was just wonderful. We got to just do like we're here, we're enjoying ourselves. I talked to the audience before the movie. We took pictures with everybody. You and I earlier that day went to like a printing shop, FedEx printing shop, and we had an artist make posters, a poster for the film, and we had those cut out and we handed those out to people who came to attend, and I put I signed them, and it was just it
I
was
still have mine.
me
I
too.
can't. I'm gonna frame it as soon as I move into it. But like, it's one of my favorite
I'll be sure to take a
things
picture
that we
so we
did.
can include it right here.
Yeah. Realistically, you're not going to see it there, but it's
Okay.
always a possibility.
Realistically,
No, I mean,
yeah.
if it goes somewhere, it's going to go on the black. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, we still have to make decisions about that. Anyways, suffice to say, like even if we did nothing else with the movie, which we kind of didn't, that made it the whole experience worth it, and made me. It was kind of like I finally got that ring, of like I accomplished making a movie, I accomplished telling a story, and it would like, and if you were to put that. If you were to send that film back to a younger version of me, I would never believe that was the movie that I spent my time making. And no knock against the movie, but well, in the sense of like when you're like even into my late teens, early 20s, I was like I would think that I was making a crime movie, or I would be making a movie about action, adventure, things like that. And the fact that I made a movie that was like a heartfelt, kind of a woman of a certain age dealing with the fact that she's there and no longer able to get what she wants easily. And it's just like a very personal situation I think we all go through as we get older, where our youthful charms start to run out. And I'm more proud of that I made that movie. If I don't make another movie in my life, I'm glad I made Negotiations, because that message resonates with people, and it actually, it speaks to men and women alike, versus like the movies I thought I would be making when I was, 19, 20, 21. I mean, they would either be way over the top comedies, or they would have been very melodramatic, serious, like mysteries or something like that. And I'm just really glad that's the movie I ended up making. And it kind of came about because every step of the way I didn't give up like my movie, to other people's. I didn't give up my vision. What I did is I negotiated with other people to fulfill the vision. Because if I hadn't stopped and decided I'm going to listen to these folks who are telling me what they think is not quite working about this movie, I would have never gotten it made. It would have just been a script in a drawer. Maybe I could have got it. Maybe we would have like done some mock rehearsals or something like that, like a script read through. But yeah, we wouldn't have seen it through if I hadn't worked with you, if I hadn't worked with Toby to make this something that you two could like put your effort into. If I hadn't let Erica Nix take over the character and really start shaping what the character was, and writing it for her, it would not have gotten made. Like all these factors are what got the movie made.
Absolutely. So, taking it away, kind of what are the key takeaways that you have here from making Negotiations, and to what extent would you apply them to, how we approach game design today when, as we work on X Seekers of Fortune and future games?
All right. So the key takeaways. So now this is let me know how I do, Danny, because this is my first time doing the key takeaways. So, I need to learn from the master. When working with people, listen to what they think and feel like isn't working, but take their proposed solutions with a grain of salt. Now, that means, that's like we've said, that key takeaway is something that could become its own episode that we can do, and maybe we've already done by the time this comes out. But the long and the short of it is, I earnestly believe people can diagnose the problem with your creative vision and like where you might need to put more time and effort or readjust. But I would say 99% of the time, they cannot give you the solution. The solution they're proposing is for their project that they have in their mind. You have to sort of like take their criticism, digest it, and come up with your own solution. Otherwise, it's not going to be true to you. And so just always remember that they're good at diagnosing the problem, but maybe once they start offering a solution, I'm not saying stop listening, but that's where their most important contribution has already been made. Second takeaway is this is not a one-person show. Make sure to give folks room to be creative in their own ways and let them own a piece of the project too. And like I said, that was most visible with Erica Nix and her performance. That character was completely different in my mind as to how it was written on page, but the way that she read it, she didn't change. Well, I don't think we changed many lines for her. She just read it in such a way that it became her character. And I think, I really honestly think it is, as much as it is my project, I would say it is Erica Nix's project. Your lead actor or actress always becomes basically the like, they get ownership of it, because their performance will change the way everybody around them is performing too.
And you could apply that to anything. It's not just actors. I mean, right now we're doing that with our graphic designers, with our artists. I mean, you want to make sure that when you work with other people, that you give them room to actually, express themselves through their work. Don't just try to turn them into your puppet.
100%. I agree. And, and there's give and take, and that tension is what makes the magic. Like, this isn't a takeaway, but if you're going to do a creative project, especially one that is not just you like writing and drawing everything, if you're not a one-man show, you got to deal with some creative tension, and you're going, if you can't exist in that space and understand that that's where the magic happens or the good ideas come out of, then you might want to, if that's uncomfortable for you, it might not be the field for you. If you don't know, okay, third takeaway, if you don't know how to do something, find someone who does know how to do it, and if possible, pay them. Like I said, sound was not my forte. I was afraid of it. I had avoided it at all cost. I'm a little more comfortable with the idea of tackling it now. I think I have a better idea of what it means, just like I have a better idea of what cinematography means. I could probably actually have an opinion about lighting the next time I make a movie, and an opinion about sound. But at the time, it scared me. It was stopping me in my boots, and I just needed to bring in a professional. And if I didn't pay them, I really wish I had. The final key takeaway: if you go through all of this and don't burn too many bridges, you can have a great night screening the movie with all those friends you made along the way. That's basically it.
Violet Crown before it went downhill.
At the Violet Crown before it went downhill.
That's
it does. I will say that it does help. That this last one, you might have to pay a little bit more money, set money aside in the budget to have your screening. Maybe that's what I should be saying, because I had an in. I got a really great price. I think it would have probably cost another person at least 5 times as much to do what we did for $50. So just keep that in mind.
$250 for those keeping track at home. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, those are definitely takeaways, and I think they're key. So I would call them key takeaways. Very well done, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the thumbs up.
Now, yeah, it's very cool looking at, the whole, hold on, I'll give you the baton back. Don't worry. I've corrupted the power a little bit, but I'll give it back to you. Don't worry. No, I think this was great. I think you did a great job just kind of walking us through the mindset of making a film. And, for people out there who aren't filmmakers, a lot of the people listening are probably game designers or maybe have some other creative venture. These lessons apply just as much to, any other creative pursuit, so really heed those key takeaways. And with that, I will relinquish whatever magical power Joel bestowed upon me and go back to just being a lowly second chair co-host.
All right, co-host in that second chair. I do feel it's funny that you hand this back to me, the power for me, just to relinquish the power back to you, because I think it's time for Game of the Week. And as always, that's when you get to reign over me with your tyranny of comedy.
Yes. I don't know how funny it is. It's very amusing to me. I don't know that it registers that way for anyone else, but it's a highlight of my week. So here's the thing. I'm going to give you the game of the week. And for those who are keeping track at home, you can play along if you want to. Some of these things are better for playing at home than other things. This one I don't think is a very good one to play at home. But at the end of it, Joel, you rate it as per usual, as either I would play it again or I would play it again under duress. And here we go. So this week's episode is very much inspired by this week's main topic of negotiations. And one of the key things about negotiations is oftentimes you have to position things to other parties and show them the value in order for them to, move along with the negotiation, say, okay, we can make this work, right? So positioning value is a key part of negotiations. So in this game, I'm going to give you something to sell, and then you are going to sell it to the audience. Okay? So you have to come up with that value proposition on the fly and convince people to buy what you're selling.
Okay, this is going to be fun.
All right. The first one is counting mailboxes.
Do you say county? Like, Travis counting mailboxes?
No. Counting.
Mailbox.
Like Count Dracula, counting mailboxes.
So am I selling them the concept of like point there? How many mailboxes are out there?
Why are you acting so coy about this?
I don't know what you mean. Okay. You got to keep your brain fresh, folks. I mean, you just have to find things to do with it. You have to constantly be testing it. You have to be like, see that information out there, process it. What is the number? So what I tell you to do, you're driving around, you're at a stop sign, look down that street, and as quickly as possible, you tell me right now how many mailboxes are out there. Get it right? Well, maybe some money on the line. Get it wrong? Well, buddy, I think you need to work on your skills. Either way, I'll be $5.50.
I'm so confused by that. I don't know how that's of value to me. If anything, I feel like I'm being shooken down.
Buddy.
Shooken?
Buddy.
Shaken down?
Well, right there. It seems like that sharp knife of the brain has gone quite dull. This is a whetstone to get it sharpened back up.
Okay. How about flesh-eating bacteria?
Look, we're all trying to lose weight in this society, in this day and age. Who amongst us couldn't lose 20 pounds? Now, where does that 20 pounds come from?
Flesh.
You want it to come from the gut, but hey, what if you just lose a little bit off the bottom, I mean, it's not like the American health system has anything wrong with it, right? $5.50.
Okay, here we go. Okay, these are good warm-ups. This one is a hearse limo.
A hearse limousine?
Yeah.
I'm trying to sell it to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, the car economy is in a wild place right now, and you are not in a position to be that picky. So why, instead of being picky, why don't you be creative? Look at this. You got yourself a limousine over here, a hearse limousine, granted. But you are in the modern American economy. You got to be doing something with that storage space back there, buddy. Whether it be, driving dead folks around or driving live folks around, pop a coffin back there, make yourself the Uber goth or the Uber for goths. That's what I'm saying. You get yourself two caskets lined up next to each other. What an entrance for a couple at, I don't know, the premiere of the new live action Nightmare Before Christmas. They're going to look like the coolest kids, the coolest goth kids in the entire coven. So $5.50.
All right, last one. You ready?
Actually, yeah, this is probably one of my favorite game of the week so far.
Well, I have other ones, but we're gonna cut to the chase here. All right.
Okay, cool.
Being attacked by an eagle and a snake at the same time.
Humans are designed to survive. They are designed to take on trauma, and you've got to keep that trauma at bay in just the right way. Now, you're in a situation with an active shooter. That's trauma. That's a little too much. That's more than nature created. That's man created drama and trauma. But what would the ape who you would have called your great to the nth degree grandfather or grandmother, what kind of trauma would they have been able to handle? Like a bad day, but they're going to walk away and come back refreshed with their mind full of new hormones to help them survive. And that trauma is we're pushing it to the limit here. I'm not just saying an eagle. I'm not just saying a snake. What I'm saying is a snake and an eagle coming in at you at the same time from the sky. You had no idea. You were at the watering hole. You were tending your garden. You were collecting berries for your people. And now you have to defend yourself against the combination. And it is wild. It is sharp claws, poisonous bite. How will you defend yourself? How will you escape? That is when you discover yourself. you will know yourself better having survived this. And if you don't, well, maybe you just didn't deserve you didn't deserve to live, buddy. That's what I'm saying. So will you fight the eagle and the snake at the same time, descending from the heavens? I think you will. For $5.50.
So your value proposition there is you'll discover yourself by fending off an eagle and a snake at the same time?
100%. You will trigger something in your primitive mind going through this ordeal that will make you a more complete person. This is something that not everybody gets to do. Only those who have mastered snake wrangling, hawk. Was it hawk tree? It's not hawking. Maybe just hawking. And
falconry.
Falconry. Yes, thank you. Falconry.
I don't know.
That's and the art of duct taping a snake to the foot of a falcon.
Do you feel like you would be more into eating an eagle with a snake than without a snake?
You got to spice it up, baby. Like okay. That's two good meats that go great together.
On that note, I think I would have to ask you: would you do this again? Would you play it again, or would you play it again under duress?
I would play it again. I had a good time. This is up there with. I would actually say this is reminds me of Allow Me to Mansplain.
Really?
I love having a topic that is ridiculous that you have to commit to. Now, I think that's a little more nebulous. What is like the correct answer? That's probably where the problem is. But as an improv game, I'm just you have to sell this thing. It sort of like reminds me of that whole Jordan Balfour. It's like, sell me this pin, sell me this pin. But it's so ridiculous, and you just have to come up with an answer and go for it. I love that in an improv game.
I guess you could do like a version of it very similar to Allow Me to Mansplain, where you're trying to guess what they're selling you.
That's true. So you can't use the words like what. we should take this conversation off. Megamoth could use a party game.
Yeah. Okay. Although this one might be a little too close to something that 4Y Games has recently put out.
Possibly. We could talk. We maybe talk to Curvin about this one. Maybe we should show him. We'll edit this clip out, and so we can show it to Curvin. All right. So, Danny, any other thoughts on that game right there?
Yeah, no, I thought you did really great. I thought the prices were a little steep at $5.50, but otherwise I was very impressed.
Just had to, that's like where the real thought process comes in. Was it pricing is practically, it's so important to a product. There is a correct answer for how much your product is worth and how much people will buy it for. $5.50, probably not the correct answer for an eagle snake attack. With that, we'll go ahead and end the episode. So if you would like to learn more about our show and about our game, X Seekers of Fortune, you can follow us on the various social media platforms. On TikTok, we are Megamoth Studios, the name of the show, basically. And on Instagram, we go by our game name, X_Seekers_of_Fortune. Now on Facebook, a little bit easier. It's just X Seekers of Fortune. Not all one word, no underscores, just spelled out the way you would see it on the box. If you would like to try out a beta version of our game and get involved with the community that's already playing it and giving us valuable feedback that we need to make the game as thoroughly just as thoroughly play tested as possible before we go to market, then you want to go to our Discord. You'll find a link down below to get to our Discord, and from there you'll be able to find people to play the game with on Tabletopia. Anything you want to add before we go, Danny?
Yeah, and I understand why early on we didn't do this, but now that we're on Spotify and Apple and everything, I think it's worth also including our YouTube information, because maybe people aren't listening to the podcast on YouTube anymore. Maybe they're listening to it on an app and don't know about the YouTube.
Yeah. So if you want to really get the full effect of me selling you being attacked by an eagle and a snake, go onto YouTube, type in Megamoth Studios. You'll find our channel there. We don't know which episode this is going to be, but just search up Evergreen 2. That should bring it up, and you can see the video side of this wonderful audio experience. And trust us, so Danny and I, we're lookers.
Yeah, I think that is something you could say.
Okay, well, Danny, if that was everything, So I would just want to go ahead and say that I have been Joel, reminding you that you must start somewhere, so why not here? Thanks for listening.
Theme music by James Holden, produced and edited by William Wymore.
Keep an eye out for those eagles and those snakes, because Joel won't always be there to protect you with his voracious appetite.